Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have a familiar face, kind of. He's been a guest here before. Walter.
I'm excited to be here.
You see this morning. He is filling in. He's going to kill it. Do all the good, awesome things. But today we are continuing our talk on Trapped in Transition. I don't know why I said it like that.
So I was talking with Ezra a little bit this morning, and then even Cherub, just kind of to recap some of the week so far, which I guess it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of the week so far. But whenever they were talking to me about the topic, obviously a lot of things came to my mind. But, if you could kind of fill me in on where you guys were falling from yesterday.
Yeah. We were talking about how transitions can be hard. Mike killed it. He gave a good word on how transitions are hard. They're not easy, but they're necessary to stay consistent in. And he shared a little bit about his personal journey, and he correlated with his health journey and all those things. And honestly, I don't think there's I don't think this is an accident that, we have Walter here today, because I don't think there's a better person to talk about transition than Walter.
Yep.
That's very true, actually.
Because
Diana is sitting at home watching this going, what's he going to say?
She's got a little notepad out. She's like, let's see all the mistakes. Let's see.
No. Honestly, I could speak to that, I guess. But for those who have followed along, when I was on the podcast a little bit last year, I relocated from Arkansas, came here with a vision, and not just my own vision, but a company vision. And some things took a little longer, and it was frustrating at times, for sure. I can be a patient person about a few things, and then there's some things that it's just like, how many times can you hit your head against that wall before you're like, I guess we're just not going anywhere. And there's probably days like that. For me, there was days like that for Dave. There was days like that for Diana. My own team probably had days like that, because it's difficult, because you want to see progress. Yeah. And sometimes in a transition, the progress that's happening is unseen. So
that's good. You need to write that down wherever you are. Write that down. Sometimes, that was a good nugget. Sometimes in the transition you're in, the progress seems super unseen. That's so true. I think we were trying to say that yesterday, and we couldn't find that point. That's why Walter's here today. That bullet point right there.
I can leave now.
No, mic drop, and then he walks out. No, that's so good. I think I totally agree. I think that's why we labeled it Trapped in Transition. It does not feel comfortable sometimes, and it's a lot. Sometimes it feels like, just like this picture, you're breaking out. You're like, please, just get me out of this transition. It can be super frustrating, super discouraging to be in them. But honestly, can you even talk about maybe some of your personal, ways you got out of that frustration and way you stayed encouraged?
Yeah, obviously you have to lean on other people too, but a lot of it, to be honest, it sounds like, this is the church thing to say, but it's just prayer and just staying faithful to God's promise for me. And I knew that He didn't bring me here for no reason, And I was telling Cherub this morning when he was talking to me about the topic. One of the things I thought about was, Noah building the ark. He was going to try to find a clip, but I told him too late, so he can't make this clip really work. But Noah built the ark and had to wait a while for rain. And a lot of people doubted him and were just like, man, you're crazy. You're not hearing God right. And I'm sure Noah at times was probably like, am I hearing him right?
Yeah.
And I thought about the movie clip from Evan Almighty, just because obviously Steve Carell can make it a lot more comedic. But, he's like, a little help here, because everybody's just, doubting him. And he's just like looking at all that he's built, this massive, ark. And he's like, God, this would be the time right now for you to come in and save the day. Mm-hmm. And I think that we find ourselves in those spots where it's not always our doubt that first gets us going. It's the others' doubts that are like, man, I think you're wrong, Walter. I don't think you were supposed to move to Florida. And it's when you let those doubts creep in instead of seeking the Lord, saying, God, I know you brought me here. I know that this was you. and I want to wait on you, but tell me what I need to do. Tell me, what my next steps are. Craig Rochelle talks about how, a lot of times whenever we're waiting and things aren't happening, we start doubting, like, is it sin in my life? Is it, I'm not as tied to God as I thought I was? Is it, what is it that I'm doing to prevent it? And sometimes the only thing that you're doing to prevent it is being impatient. Because also in that transition period, in that waiting period, if you can really wrap yourself in the Lord's promise, you can have peace.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like, I love Thanksgiving dinner. Okay?
Me too.
Amen. Love it.
I'm pretty sure you're not American if you don't love that.
My mom's no longer with us, but she used to cook, not even just Thanksgiving, but like cooked crazy, well. And sometimes I really wanted to eat, and I could be a little bit impatient. But then I got to the point where I was like, okay, I've tried to do this faster, and I've tried to make this meal before, and I rushed something, and I missed something, and it was never as good. So then my anticipation for what I knew my mom was bringing to the table that was going to be excellent, that anticipation, I was just sitting there as I'm smelling it. I'm like, those are getting just how I want. I'm just like pumped about it. And then now I get to enjoy it. So once I really knew, like, the meal was going to be just like I wanted it, just like, my mom told me it was going to be like, once I knew that, it was really easy to sit there and kind of be peaceful in the moment. I could watch football while, meals getting cooked. And I think what we have to do as Christians is understand that God's had plenty of promises along the way that we have seen fulfilled. And so that since we know that He's the author, He can, make it happen. We need to sit in a little more peace in that transition time, knowing that He can do it better.
That's good. I think, honestly, even you hit something on the nail, bringing up that story with Noah. The whole reason, like, people were questioning kind of seems reasonable, right? Like, it's like, hey, like, it hasn't even rained here. It's like been a drought, and God's telling you to build a boat for a flood that we've literally never experienced before. And, in our human nature, it seems like, yeah, like, that's not going as planned. And I think, even when you're comparing it to your own story of, like, maybe people saying, like, hey, you're not supposed to move there. Or, hey, like, there seems to be some roadblocks. It looks like God's not trying to direct you there. Why do we think, everything has to look perfect to the human eye in order for it to be God's plan, right? We think that God's plan sometimes is just going to be butterflies and rainbows along the journey, and that there's going to be these open pathways and just these pretty flowers along the way that we're looking at. And yes, God does open doors. Yes, God does direct our paths. But sometimes I think we have to, we're walking through uncharted waters that we've never seen before, and that God is leading. That's why we have to have God leading us through it. Like, we can't be led along those right paths by ourselves. We need to be led by Him. And sometimes I think that looks different than, what we think. And it's the journey that prepares us for the thing He's called us to. And it's that road along the way that maybe we picked up some things. We picked up some discernment, we picked up some diligence, and we picked up some things that we've learned. And sometimes I think learning, though, is like learning not just what to do, but what not to do even. I've been definitely in seasons where, under certain leadership or under certain things, and that they were great people, great things, had great principles, but maybe there's certain things that I learned not to do from them. And it's because I saw what it did when I was underneath that, And so as a leader, like, I'm taking that and I'm like, hey, like, how can I make my leadership better? Not because I want to be better than them or anything, but because I want to grow. And these people were placed in my life for a reason, and I can guarantee that. Like, these people in my life were there for a reason, at the right time, did do amazing things in my life and help me and get to certain places that I never, would have been. But, there are things, doesn't mean they're perfect. And so I can learn along the way. I think sometimes we just expect it to be something that God just leads us through, and that we learn nothing but what to do rather than what not to do. And that obviously is going to make it seem like if there's a roadblock, if there's a detour, or what feels to be a detour along the way, it's like, oh, never mind, God's not in this. I made the wrong decision. And we're questioning everything He maybe spoke to us. And I can even say that for Matthias and I's relationship, honestly. a lot of people would tell me, oh my goodness, you guys are going to get married. I'm like, can you just stop? Like, we're friends. Like, stop that. Like we're literally just friends. Like, I don't want that. Like, there was like a season where I didn't talk to him for months because I was just like so weirded out that everyone kept telling me that. And, you know, I was looking at it from a totally different perspective. Like, it had to look this way if it was from the Lord. It had to be, you know, when I was in college and not in the right season, like going on my journey, and it had to be when I was ready, right? And at this point, I was like not seeking anything at all. I was like, I literally don't want a relationship whatsoever. And then the Lord brings Matthias in my life, and thought it had to look one way, and he looks even better. So come on, somebody.
Well, I think when you were talking a minute ago too, where you said, you know, sometimes we want it to look a certain way. You know, think about how we've, you know, grown as a society. You know, there was a time where, like, you know, you only called somebody. And then you got to the point where it's like, why are you calling me? Why didn't you just text me? You know? Or like, you sent that, you know, on a fax. Like, what are we, you know, from the prehistoric days? Like,
God.
email it, you know? Like,
So true.
So I think, like, sometimes the worldly expectations for the way that communication should look, we almost expect God to communicate that. Like, we're almost like, hey, God, when are you going to text me? You know? And he's
And
like,
then maybe I'm not getting some signal here.
yeah.
I'm like,
we're checking our bars. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well, you both said something
Like, I'm not
really.
hearing.
You both said something really interesting, and you both hit on it, which is impatience. Last year, I don't think I've told this on the podcast. I broke my year goal of losing 50 pounds last year.
That's awesome.
But probably about 6 months into it, I hit a plateau. And if anybody's ever tried to lose weight, you know exactly what I'm talking about, which is where your weight loss just levels out. Like, you literally stay for anywhere from 6 to like 9 weeks at the exact same weight. No matter what you do, it just sits there. And I know I'm going to have to equate this to God, but after like 4 weeks of frustration, I told my trainer, I'm like, I don't know why I cannot break this. I cannot lose. And I was so caught up on the number. That was my number one mistake. I was so caught up on the number that I was trying to lose. So it was frustrating me even harder because I wasn't making any more progress. Now, my trainer is sitting there the entire time encouraging me, like, hey, we just did your measurements. You lost another 2 inches. Like, what you should be happy. But I was so focused on the number, and my patience was getting the better of me. And then she finally is like, listen, we're gonna make a couple of changes. Trust me, in 3 weeks, you'll notice a difference. And I finally took a moment and I said, okay, I'm going to trust her. Like, I'm paying her. She knows what she's talking about. And then 3 weeks later, I finally started seeing that number go down again. So it was just trusting that the person who was helping me or guiding me knew what they were doing, but allowing my impatience to finally go, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going to trust that this process is going to work. So the impatience part is like a very big key thing in transitions, where we try to hurry progress and we try to make progress work on our schedule versus what the schedule is intended. You know, that 6 weeks that I didn't move or lose anything was basically, it was teaching me not only perseverance, but it also showed me, hey, don't focus so much on this, just focus on the system, not the goal. That was what I took away from that.
I think trust the process.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I think sometimes it's fear that we're not doing something right that's holding us back too. And so that's where that frustration can come from as well. Because it's like, I feel like there should be more progress happening. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe my trainer's not the trainer for me at this point, or, you know, maybe this really isn't the best diet or whatever. You know, in Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10, it says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Like, I think that in those moments of, you know, that transition, that plateau where we do get freaked out, like, we have to remember that the Lord is our helper. He's our strength. And we're an impatient people now. We really are. You know, I think Pastor Aaron talked about it this past Sunday when he said, like, I never want to watch a Netflix series, you know, like over the span of 8 weeks or whatever. I want to watch it all right now.
I need deliverance from that one. I could 100% do that in 2 weeks.
It was really funny because we actually were talking about this yesterday of marketing, where, like, society as a whole, it used to be you didn't want to go into the restaurant, so they created drive-thrus. Then drive-thru wasn't fast enough, so then they created order ahead so that you could walk, like, and then so then you have order ahead. Then it's like, well, that's not good enough. Now you can have it delivered to your house, so you don't have to go wait anywhere. Like, it's just funny how society's changed in that.
I was talking to one of our employees on Saturday about that. Like, you can literally, like, Uber Eats a fountain drink from the gas station.
I got Starbucks once, but it was so sketchy. Like my drink was like way lower, so I was like, I don't think I trust this.
That's
I
crazy
reported
to me.
it. I like took a picture. I was like, please, someone send me another drink.
But she still drank it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't actually. I'm like low-key a germaphobe, so I was just like, oh gosh, I can't. I was like, I'm really skeptical about ordering from Uber Eats now. I'm like, how many?
Wait a second, that's the coffee you offered. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, that's the coffee I offered you guys the other day, so you drank it. Haha, sucker. Joke's on you. That's so funny. I think also, like, it's super easy to, like you were saying, walk in transitions and think, like, question that God brought me here. Like, did God bring me here because it doesn't look the way that I thought it should look? And I think that's where it ultimately, and it's the Christianese answer, right? But it's the truth, where we have to just trust that He's the one that brought us here, and we have to remember the words that He's spoken and the decision that we made. I'm the first to believe that at the name of Jesus, like, things can heal. At the sound of His name, demons have to flee, and that the supernatural is a real thing that that operates. But sometimes I think along the journey, like, we're waiting for so much of the supernatural and these like things to just appear, that we're not allowing God to develop us in the natural, right? And to create those disciplines in us, and to create maybe the diligence in us. And it's, even in the scripture, it talks about how, count it joy when you face trials of many kind. Why? Because you're getting that discipline, you're growing, you're learning perseverance. And I think so often we think, oh, trial, oh my goodness, it's not perfect. God's not here. Like, God's perfect. How could this not be perfect? And I think we're waiting a lot of times on just the supernatural to happen. This big boom, you're at the destination. Boom, you're along the right paths. And we like the verse of, like, He leads me beside still waters and quiets my soul. We love Psalms 23. But do we actually love, like, the part where it's like, hey, like, keep persevering.
Yeah.
Keep going through the difficult season, and don't lose heart, because I'm there with you. It's one thing to say don't fear, right? But it's another thing to allow, like, us to walk through that. And, like, why, if I'm saying don't fear, that means you're probably going to have something in your way that you might fear naturally, unless you're relying on the supernatural. And I think here's where, like, a lot of times the supernatural comes in, that He gives us supernatural peace when there shouldn't be. Mm. He gives us supernatural wisdom when there shouldn't be. He gives us discernment when there shouldn't be. When there doesn't seem to have any sort of system or organization or any destination, He gives us those supernaturally through creativity and through the things He's given us gifts in. And so I think a lot of times the supernatural looks much different than, like, a genie in a bottle where he snaps his fingers and he's like, okay, make your wish. Like, you want a perfect journey? Okay, here you got it. No, it's the things where we get what the world doesn't have. We have that peace when the world doesn't have peace. We have joy when there's depression and anxiety. And I think a lot of times that is where the supernatural comes into place, because we are operating in trust in the natural, and He's imparting in the supernatural.
I think it's also, you got to be careful who you surround yourself with in those times. Like, going back to when I started here, part of what really helped us get to where we are today, and we're in a really healthy spot in my department. We're in a really healthy spot as a company. Sure. And it's not exactly when we wanted it to happen, but I could have easily sought outside counsel in this situation and said, what do you think about this? And be like, oh man, it sounds like you made the wrong decision. That's crazy talk. Like, why would they not want to do this? Or, why would they make this decision? I could have sought the wrong people, but instead, like, I surrounded myself with like-minded individuals in this that were seeking the Lord's favor. Like, we had prayer meetings, saying, hey, this doesn't look like what we thought it was going to look like. Yeah. But the people that wanted to see it happen still were in agreement together that in the Lord's timing this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's super important too, because if in that waiting period you're going to those that aren't as connected, it's really easy for them to sway you. You want to surround yourself with people that are like, hey, let's keep leaning in. Let's keep leaning in. God's got this. We believe God's got this. Mm-hmm. Lean in. That's the people you want to be around.
That's so true. And I think even for me, like Matthias, it was super important when we got married to like surround ourselves with the people. You know, we have a lot of people we love and a lot of people we care about, a lot of people we're acquaintances with. But we were intentional about surrounding ourselves with people that, like, if our marriage ever got hard, like if we went to them, they're not going to be like, go get a divorce. Just go ahead and throw that in the towel. Like, what are you doing? Like, he acted like that, girl. He gave you an attitude. Go ahead and drop him. Like, that's the people we like completely avoided surrounding ourselves with, to surround ourselves with the people that are going to say, hey, like, your marriage is worth fighting for. And I think you need to get people, maybe it's not a marriage for you. Maybe it's a goal. Maybe it's a dream. Maybe it's whatever the case may be for your life. Get people around you that are going to say, hey, keep going, like, hold you accountable and push you. And I think it's not about necessarily they need to be, someone that is, it's not the same as someone just you like and you love and that has good intentions. It's someone that's going to intentionally, there's a difference between having good intentions and being intentional, right? I can have good intentions that, I don't want to hurt anybody, but if I'm not intentionally, doing something about that, I'm going to probably hurt someone because I'm human. And so I think it's the same thing. We need to surround ourselves with people and also be the people that are intentional, and they're going to push you, not just say, oh, you want to work out? Yeah, you should do that. But they're like, hey, are you working out? How's your goal of losing 50 pounds? Hey, how are you doing? What can I do to help you? What can I do to push you forward to this goal? And I think that when we surround ourselves with people like that are continually consistent in our lives, it makes a huge difference too.
Well, I think what you just said too is interesting in the fact that, like, when we're asking or we're looking for those people, we're not wanting to go to people that are saying, let me get out my book of my recommendations. It's, the ones that are leaning into the Lord's,
Yes.
words. And when Ashton's saying, like, how is your working out going? She's not saying, you should stop that workout because I've got a better one. Mm-hmm. She wasn't doing that. She's saying, hey, I'm going to believe with you. How's it going though? How can I pray for you? How can I help motivate you? I'm not trying to switch you up off that lane. I'm just, how can I be somebody to help hold you accountable for that? And I think that's where sometimes we want to go to somebody that will give us answers because we're waiting on answers.
Yeah.
But if we're just running for an answer, we can sometimes get the wrong one. Mm-hmm. So we really want to seek the right people that are okay with, like, I'll be honest, I have no problem telling people, even in my own department, you know what? I don't know. That's a great question.
Sure, Mike has heard that from me plenty of times.
And
I don't know.
The reason, my own employees, I don't mind telling them, hey, that's a great question. I don't know. But the reason why I'm in the position I'm in is because I don't stop it there. It's then I need to go to where I can get the answers for that so that we can, as a team, get where we need to go. I could easily be like, oh, yeah, it probably means this, And then next thing you know, my whole crew's doing the wrong thing. So you don't want to have people that are just willing to give an answer for the sake of giving an answer. You want people that are going to choose the path with you.
Your whole
seek
team,
the right answers.
Your whole team's doing the wrong thing, and then your IT manager's getting really mad because he has to go back and fix all of it.
I think also, I think a lot of time what kills us in transition is the fact that, like what you were saying, kind of along the lines of, like, we kill ourselves with. I just lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness, that was unbelievable.
I have a point if you need.
Yes, you go, because I literally just lost my train of thought as I was speaking.
So this one comes down to music. In a lot of it, it's just music in general. But when it comes down to us playing at church, one of the biggest things that bands struggle with is not playing the song as you guys know it. Whether we play it just like you guys hear it on the radio or Spotify, or we alter it. That's not the hard part. The hard part is never playing the song. The hard part is transitioning to the next song. And one of the biggest keys is when you are surrounded by the right people. So when you have the right people around you, trusting that everybody's going to do their part in that transition. So when it comes to this transition, if you're trusting that God has your back in that transition, then you're going to go through confidently. Mm-hmm. You have to have the confidence that whoever's with you in transition and doing that transition with you has your back. So if that's somebody that's supporting you, if that's God, like you have to have the confidence in knowing that person has your back and that you can go into that transition with confidence. That's the biggest thing.
That's super good. I kind of remember what I was going to say as well. I know that was like super weird. I'm sorry, y'all. But I think also what kills us in transition can be the fact that Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought again. It's like every time I try to say this.
That is Satan right there. He's trying to steal.
What the heck? I'm like,
he is trying
come
to
on.
steal.
I'm like,
I'm pumped to finally hear this word.
Gosh, I'm gonna have to like go to Walter like in the middle of the day, and be like, I remembered. I just need someone to hear this. No, I think oftentimes what kills us though in those transition periods is the fact that kind of what Mike was saying. You know, there has to be that unity and alignment with the vision that God has for us. It's not what we dream. It's not what we want. It's not what we desire. And I think honestly, God does place dreams and desires and goals in our hearts, and that's not a bad thing. And it's okay to have those things. But I think if they're not birthed out of that place, it can feel so frustrating in transitions to where we're like, well, my goal is 50 pounds even, right? Even if that's a good goal, like it's an amazing goal. I'm not saying that that's not to anything to Mike. That's just the first thing that came to my mind. My goal is 50 pounds, but like, is that birthed out of a place of like, oh, I need to like look the best, do the part, do the things, or is it rooted in, I'm like exactly what Mike did of like, I want to be like a better like person. Like I want to grow as a person. I want to, be living a long, healthy life. And I want to be available to my family. Those things that Mike always talks about. And I think that the alignment with the goal is super important. It's not a matter of like these dreams just because I could. It's these dreams because this is what I know that God has called me to. And I think that helps when we feel trapped in transition. It helps smooth things down and make us not like as frustrated in it, because we always have a constant reminder of the why. Like my why isn't because I want to be a supermodel. My why is because I want to live a long, healthy life that's able to honor and glorify God in everything that I think, say, and do. Whatsoever I eat or drink or whatever I do, right? Whatever I eat or drink is like the first sentence. I think we always avoid that one. I know I do. I'm like, come on, somebody. I like my coffee with creamer and sugar. But it's the whatsoever I eat or drink or whatever I do all for the glory of God. And so I think that it's always when we have the why and we have that to fall back on every single day, that helps us get up in the morning, right? That helps us, it's not another day. It's I get to do this. I get to walk in this calling. I get to walk in this transition. I get to walk in this season. And it moves from I have to I get to, and because I know the why. And that's simply just a good nugget to live in, a principle to live in your life. I know that we are out of time. Did you have anything else?
I was just going to say, like, as we're closing out, the only other thing I thought about when thinking about this subject is, especially with Cherub Can Talk, is the IT part of it. I don't know how many times my computer has froze up. I'm trying to like do something. And in that transitional period of wanting it to go to the next tab or whatever it is, and I keep on hitting the same button over and over, like that's going to somehow help. But there's this thing that's going on underneath that I can't see that is trying to help me get to where I want to go. And unfortunately, sometimes like we do have to wait a little bit, but just understand that it can do the things that you want it to do.
Yeah.
But you gotta be patient. God wants to do the things that He's promised He's gonna do, but there's some things that are going on underneath that we can't see all the time.
Yeah.
And we just gotta hold faithful that God's gonna, still be someone that fulfills His promises, which He has every time up to this point. So I don't see any reason why He's not gonna continue to do it.
It's good. And also shout out, David and Diana, my mom and dad, are in the YouTube comments. They're saying they're going to be here tomorrow and that they miss everybody. So shout out to them. We love you guys. We miss y'all. And Mike, take it away, sir.
Thank you all for tuning in today. We hope you guys are enjoying this series. Dave and Diana will be back tomorrow, as you heard Ashton just say, and we are looking forward to having them back. We missed them. But I got a couple things to run down before we head out of here. If you guys would like, we have a daily encouragement text that goes out every single day, Monday through Friday at 8:30 a.m. EST that you guys can opt into for free. You can text the letters EZGC to 813-522-3356. To everybody that is with us live, we always appreciate you guys being here, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. But if for any odd reason you guys cannot make it to the live streams, you can always keep up with us in two ways. Number one, go to YouTube, search Game Changer Podcast Live. Go to our channel, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell, and you will get notified when we upload the replays of these episodes every single day. You can also go to your favorite audio podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and subscribe to us and subscribe to our feed so that you guys can always have us on the go if you guys prefer the audio version of this podcast. If you're listening to this episode or watching this episode on replay, you can always join us when we do these live streams and when we record these episodes live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 8:30 a.m. EST on Facebook and YouTube. Just search Game Changer Podcast Live. If you guys would like, you can follow us on Instagram. We post short bite-sized clips of podcast episodes, phone wallpapers, shareable graphics of quotes from the show, and much, much more. If you guys want an extra little bit of like encouragement, things like that to keep you guys going through the day, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and all social platforms. Make sure that you guys go check out our featured Bible plan. It's our newest one, and it's great going into a brand new year. It's called Blueprint. It's a 5-day reading plan on YouVersion and the Bible app. Make sure that you guys go find it, subscribe to it, read through it, and then let us know what you think. But thank you all for tuning in today. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. EST. And on that note,
We out.